Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. This is a series that consists of spewing out assorted thoughts which arose from somebody who thinks too much, taking in, and generally loving entertainment media by the boatload. These tidbits may be mini theories, observations, or simply jokes. Hopefully people will find them entertaining or at least interesting. And who knows, maybe they'll inspire others to look at what amuses them in different ways than before. Also bear in mind that everything blabbed about in these videos are from the perspective of somebody who's experienced every main story bit connected with whatever works currently being gone over. So spoilers are a definite. However, other works set in a shared continuity will typically solely be referenced in a way that only makes sense to anybody who's also fully experienced those ones up until their same time occurring points. Sort of a coded nod kind of deal. So, while things will be more fun for viewers who've indulged with an entire universe's works, nobody who has yet to do so will get non-experienced events spoiled. Now, with all of that out of the way, here we go! One thing of actual canon to mention before the fun rambling begins, a quote from Super Mario Bros. Manual. One day, the kingdom of the peaceful mushroom people was invaded by the Koopa, a tribe of turtles famous for their black magic. The quiet, peace-loving mushroom people were turned into mere stones, bricks, and even field horse hair plants, and the Mushroom Kingdom fell into ruin. So yeah, the Mario series has always been big on magic, and that information has greatly shaped these thoughts. With that out of the way, everything can truly begin. Saving Princess Peach may be the Mushroom Kingdom's top priority, but it's likely not their only goal. The various fortresses are probably military outposts that must be liberated from Bowser in order to ensure everyone's ongoing safety. There'd be no point in rescuing Peach if she got re-kidnapped just minutes later at an enemy stronghold on the way home after all. Fire bars could just be the fortress's magical heating systems that have been refitted into death traps. Instead of gunpowder being a thing in Mushroom World, bullet bills might be propelled by modified fire bars that are much shorter than usual. The Hammer Bros were probably used as carpenters by Bowser to modify all those fortresses and any surrounding landscapes to his liking. In addition to regular maintenance being a thing, they stick around and fight the Mario Bros so fervently in order to protect their precious work. The later levels were likely taken over first. They are more difficult for Mario and Luigi to advance through because of all that extra modification time that became available when no Koopa Troop opposition showed up. Likewise, the first few areas are practically a cakewalk because Mario and Luigi start fighting more or less right as Bowser's minions arrive. The elevators that are found underground and in fortresses don't actually cause death by taking their users into T-virus injected piranha plant laden greenhouses or whatever. Rather, what they do is take all who ride them so far off the correct path that timely destination arriving becomes nigh impossible. It seems like all of the Mushroom World inhabitants are able to break bricks with their fists while Super Shroom stuffed because they can channel small hand-contained magic power bursts under such conditions, sorta like a weaker Fire Flower. While small, their handheld Hocus Pocus would still be great enough to at least budge most maybe money-making materials. Punch provided power product progression. With more size comes greater magical power. Thus, truly Super Mario and Luigi receive Fire Flowers or other more potent mystical items when they release fist-funneled fantastic fuel into boon banking blocks. On a similar note, everybody, including the Toads and each variant of Koopa Troop member, have enough magically provided strength/stamina to build structures relatively quickly, at least when they have tools available. That's why everything's all fine and dandy for the second quest, no matter how much was destroyed beforehand. This weird sliding on one foot deal is likely the result of surface slipperiness caused by mushrooms moving around. The playable Toads probably possess rather impressive speed in games where they're an option, because those castle loop mazes are normally used as training courses by them. All those gaps without elevators in the fortresses likely weren't there before Bowser had everything remodeled. They may have been formed by cranking up the heat levels on some fire bars to such a degree that any nearby concrete or whatever got melted. Given that everything's magical and fire of all kinds burns just fine underwater, such hotness doesn't seem so unreasonable for temperature-altering devices in Mushroom World. This idea also has the nice fringe benefit of explaining how lava got all up in so many places throughout each fortress. Every elevator that's underwater is meant to be used as a method of extreme ocean depth exploration, hence why each one travels to such ludicrous lows. Mario and Luigi face unfortunate consequences when the things push them downward because they lack any sort of protective gear that enables safe deep-sea exploration. On a related note, the presumably much drier lifts were probably modified to function more like their submarine counterparts by Bowser and his minions in order to serve as extra obstacles for any would-be usurpers. Such alterations are likely easily achieved because all the elevators appear to be some kind of universal model that's designed for installation anywhere with available space. One last tied tidbit for now. Bowser could have convinced so many of Mushroom World's less fungal inhabitants to side with him by claiming that the Toads wanted them as a food source, much like what had been done with all those delicious bloopers. The underwater segment in SMB1's Final Fortress was probably some kind of living quarters that Bowser flooded to show Peach he means business. All those turned into blocks Toads that resisted old King Koopa's sorcery and somehow supplied the Mario Bros with coins probably pissed him off enough to just straight up drown some folks. The more difficult quest Mario and Luigi get sent on after saving Peach could be a training scenario that utilizes normally Koopa Troop found species members who are allied with Fungus Country. Princess Peach would have came up with this plan out of boredom during her capture as a means to both sharpen the Mario Bros skills and also rally Mushroom Kingdom patriotism among her more scaly subjects. At least some of these beastly bro buddies had access to the same Bowser illusion magic their higher ranked former allies did, which they cleverly utilized as an escape method from any Koopa Troop members not supporting their life decisions. This second run and jump-a-thon still contains a genuine article-equipped final Bowser confrontation because it's part of some deal he cut to reduce his sentence. There are likely more Buzzy Beetles during adventure number 2 because the Mushroom Kingdom made sure that most of them wound up opposed to Bowser. This recruitment campaign would have been a priority for Peach's province because those ebony-shelled little rascals were among the most jump-resistant creatures known during Mario and Luigi's early super career. Piranha plants probably don't leave their pipes when anybody's standing near or on top of one because they've been trained not to as a safety measure meant for those who fix Bowser's junk. Mario and Luigi are safe under said conditions because they're relatively close in size to Bowser's aforementioned maintenance minions, the Hammer Bros. In a similar vein, bullet bills don't get blasted from their cannons when folks are too close because the things are installed with safety features intended to prevent repairman obliterating friendly fire. Red piranha plants are probably trained in a slightly different manner for the sake of throwing invaders off guard. No employee fatalities stem from them because they're strategically placed into pipes that either aren't scheduled for maintenance anytime soon or ones that will never be used by Bowser's brigade. 1-Up mushrooms could have magical properties that enable those who possess them to get warped back somewhere relatively safe upon experiencing extreme injury or at least the threat of such. Warp zones are probably meant to be used regularly by both leisure-seeking travelers and commuting workers. They would typically get accessed via elevators that haven't been modified into progress-ruining detour death trap thingies. The coin-filled underground rooms are likely just plain old banks, with any money-stuffed blocks in or near them having been tellers before Bowser's man-material metamorphosis magic was cast. Coin Heaven probably came about as a result of some magic spell that converts excess moisture within the atmosphere into gold. Hence why rain doesn't happen so much in Mushroom World. This is likely much less effective during the winter because it requires mountains of fire flowers being burned for hours or whatever in order to work. That's why Mario and Luigi encounter snow much more often than its liquidy counterpart. Any species-specific strength, such as a Buzzy Beetle's fireball immunity, seems to be lost when the Bowser illusion magic is used. This probably happens because said sight-shifting spell saps stamina to such a degree that anyone or thing who winds up using it is pretty much totally exhausted from the get-go. Thus, even slight breezes could fell them with an infinitesimal amount of persistence. There seems to be an odd transition of season throughout the Lost levels. Perhaps Mario and Luigi cross over into a different hemisphere at one point. Hitting another nearby block destroys a beanstalk sometimes. This might be because the things grow by concentrating very specific magical energy in an incredibly small area. Thus, introducing practically any other type into one's vicinity disrupts this process so much that complete failure ensues immediately. The darker Bowser in Lost Levels World 8-4 probably isn't another disguised minion, but rather an actual clone produced by potent magic that's too powerful to tap into on a regular basis, hence why there aren't any true Turtle Tyrant twins in earlier fortresses. This supreme sorcery strength sapping spell likely isn't used more often because the copies it produces are totally mindless. On a related note, Peach was kept behind a door in Lost Levels 8-4 in order to ensure that she was totally safe from any not-so-negotiation-capable Koopa troops. Also closely tied to that recent idea, considering their relative similarity in color variations and shared standing uprightness levels, Bowser may be a hammer bro who somehow became a particularly powerful sorcerer. The wide variety of magic he learned is what allowed him to grow substantially large for his species and breathe fire. World 9, otherwise known as Fantasy World, is probably the source of all magical power in Mushroom World. There's likely a varying level of mystical hijinks fuel flowing into Mario & Company's typical reality, depending on how strong the barrier or whatever between these two worlds currently is. Peak paranormal pay periods present particularly potent peculiarity production possibilities, such as holding one's breath indefinitely and size-shifting shroom surpluses spontaneously showing up. When the two worlds are solidly separated, but there's still some ethereal existence essence exchanging going on, impressive yet kinda restricted supernatural feats can be achieved, like jumping off of castle roofs without going splat, or hiding abnormally colored currency inside graffiti. If there isn't any metaphysical importation going on whatsoever, then folks can't even jump down a few dozen feet from one girder to another without croaking. World 9-3 is likely solely inhabited by one of Bowser's mindless dark blue clones, because it's where he was camping out in Fantasy World while bolstering his magical powers enough to turn practically every Mushroom Kingdom citizen into brick blocks and whatnot. That spot specifically was used because it's the magical dimension's center or whatever. Bowser left his crazy copy there knowing it would execute any intruder without hesitation, so that all the sweet otherworldly mystical goodness would remain his alone. The red spring kinda trampoline deals scattered throughout some worlds are probably meant for allowing Mushroom Kingdom residents who are less capable hopping-wise to access higher elevations and or upper levels of structures that require maintenance. Those green springs that launch their users much higher than the red versions were likely developed after Luigi's superior jumping abilities became publicly known. The Toads made them green both in tribute and also to ensure that they wouldn't get confused with their 1-3 Fortress roof access assistance providing counterparts. Bowser hoarded all these leaf-colored people launchers for his more heavily guarded areas because he wanted to ensure that any particularly brave Toad troops would have considerable trouble on their hands even if they somehow skipped past other traps by using the things cleverly. On a related note, Luigi probably doesn't jump any higher than Mario in the first couple of games because he just hadn't done enough crazily running around related activities yet to realize that his legs and feet were capable of such impressive physical hoopla. Fantasy World's looping is likely just a natural phenomenon that occurs in the parts Mario and Luigi traverse. Both those castle-located repeat if the wrong way is chosen running traps and warp pipes probably function by applying this environmental quirkiness to Mushroom World's normal reality. The minus world could be what happens when one enters that aforementioned fantastic place improperly. Winding up there is kinda like being sentenced to eternity in some sort of magic failure hell. In the original version of Lost Levels events, Fantasy World is only accessible to those who never traveled via plumbing-based teleportation. This is likely because long-distance warp pipes use so much magical power that opening a portal leading there wouldn't be possible until much recharging took place. The water in non-swimming dedicated areas probably hinders adventurers because it got saturated with far too much mystical energy when Bowser block morphed all those folks, so anybody who touches said small splashiness supplies basically experiences a magical overdose or something. Lava probably doesn't kill people standing on elevators in the castles because a protective spell was cast on all vital equipment so any active maintenance crew could check out things on lower levels without worry. Bullet bills don't go so fast after getting shot out, because unlike real-world ammunition, they have to worry about seeing what they're aimed at after the firing happens. There are probably entire little worlds magically compressed inside many blocks, hence why certain pipes on top of small platforms actually lead somewhere, despite there apparently being no accessible space. The Toads turned brick or stone, who retain sentience and reward Mario and Luigi with coins, have probably figured out how to expel things out from their little pocket dimension innards. Essentially, they're magically vomiting. The A through D labeled worlds may contain craziness such as funky architecture and bullet bill cannons inside castles because they were testing sites for Mushroom Kingdom weaponry before Bowser took things over. It's likely not just Toads and other Mushroom Kingdom citizens that can get transformed into blocks, but rather anything in the world. Gold coins would usually get sacrificed for such things, hence why they're still considered valuable despite being so plentiful. Any currency-filled blocks that weren't mushroom people probably spew out their contents because some kind of magical error makes their original forms pop back up through duplication. A pile of 100 coins is likely just the amount needed to mystically generate green shrooms via a variant of said salary shape shifting sorcery. Certain blocks experiencing a particular fantastic mistake phenomenon just make the things on their own after it happens enough. Coins could actually just be smaller chunks of gold that are harder to magically transmute, hence why it takes so much more of them to make a one-up mushroom. Fire flowers are probably just plants that are utilized in some way to access magical power from the fantasy world. Grabbing one generally grants the ability to throw fireballs, because that's just a really simple spell practically everybody knows. Perhaps fireballs cannot be thrown when the Mario Bros are too high up during their earliest adventures, because effective breathing is crucial to using flower magic efficiently, and they hadn't mastered that particular skill yet. Bowser's probably not throwing hammers in Worlds A through D because he left them all around for his minions to utilize, as there was still much Koopa-style renovation needed. Super Mario Bros. 1+2 Lost Levels All-Stars remakes could be an alternate history caused by some time-traveling Koopa Troop member that tried to change things by throwing more obstacles like snow, ice, and whatnot into the Plumber champion's first adventures. Poison mushrooms may just be toads that were cursed by Bowser even further after he got extra frustrated following his first defeat. The vast majority of green-shelled Koopa's inability to stop at ledges could stem from Bowser placing some kind of gravity ignorance curse on them, so they could be used as sacrifices that would fuel his magical power via life force siphoning. The Koopa King would have chosen to do this because these particular minions remind him of what he'd look like bald. The axe that cuts Bowser's bridge support is likely just a plain old emergency fire variety tool. He doesn't personally use the thing as a weapon because his mighty claws would crush its not-so-sturdy handle. Mushroom World would still have oceans, lakes, and rivers if they turned most of their rain into money, because the water cycle lacking would be overcome by magically morphing bodily waste into all that stuff. This is why there aren't that many bathrooms in Mario games. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya!